So I picked up the Prodigy Distortion, and this is the one disc that I've seen that has really challenged the zone, and it could possibly replace it in a lot of players' bags. But there is one tiny difference that could make or break this disc for you. So let's talk about it. Now, when I say that this is the first disc to challenge the zone, I know that there are a lot of overstable approach discs that are really great out there, but I'm talking about this is the first disc that is trying to straight up be a zone replacement in both the flight and the feel of it. Like, the feel of this is almost identical to the zone. Like, when I picked it up in the store, for instance, I grabbed it and I was like, yep, this is straight up a zone. This is my zone. And even when I went home and put it next to my zone, I looked at it, I was like, yep, this is straight up just a zone in Prodigy plastic. Speaking of Prodigy plastic, I know that they get a lot of backlash for just not having a good finished clean product. They have a lot of flashing, and that's kind of what they're known for right now. But this thing is not that. It is very well polished, 0 to no flashing at all, and the plastic just feels great. It is very reminiscent of Discraft's Crystal Flex plastic, and it's just grippy, nice, and it looks beautiful as well. Now, if I were to nitpick on the differences between the zone and the distortion, I would say that the distortion does fill your hand a little bit more than the zone. And there are a few reasons for that. First is the rim is actually wider than the zone, ever so slightly wider, but it is wider. It is also a little more blunt of an edge than the zone. The zone is a little sharper as well. And then the third thing is the top of the distortion is flat. Now, the zone is popular and known for having like a puddle top, concave top to it. The distortion doesn't have that. It is more flat on the top. And so because of that concaveness of the zone, it feels shallower than it actually is. And although these are actually about the same depth, the distortion might actually be a little shallower. It feels deeper in the hand and fills your hand a little bit more because of that flat top and more blunt and wider wing. But it does change the flight a little bit, and there's a little bit of difference in the flight. Now, these two discs here are very similar in flight. They're both great approach discs. They're both fast, overstable. They're both great for backhand and forehand shots. They're just nice, consistent, overstable approach discs. Now, the difference between these, though, is the glide. This distortion, and it's just like such a slight difference. It just has a touch more glide than the zone. And it's hard to tell just watching the shots. You can definitely just feel it. The zone is just slightly faster and just doesn't have as much glide as the distortion does. I think that would either make or break this disc for you in terms of replacing your zone, because some people might like that glide because that just means it takes a little bit more or a little bit less effort for you to get the disc to your target, and you can just work it on a few more lines. It's just a touch more workable on different lines because of that glide. Now, the downside of that is the wind. One of the things that makes the zone so great is because of that puddle top on the top, it doesn't have that much glide. And because of that, when you throw it into wind, the wind just doesn't have that much of a chance to really just take advantage of the disc in the air, because the disc just wants to get to the ground fast because it has no glide. So now once the winds pick up, the distortion is like just as overstable as the zone, but because it has a little bit more glide, it wants to stay in the air a little bit longer, and because of that, the wind just has more time to just really maneuver it and take advantage of it from that standpoint. It's a little bit tricky because like when it's calm and not very windy at all, the distortion is just as good as the zone, and I would almost prefer that over the zone. But then once the winds pick up to like 35, 40 mile per hour winds, the distortion handles those very nicely, but I would almost prefer to have a zone with that slightly less glide and just have that predictability and knowing that it's just gonna stick to the ground. That is personal preference, and it really doesn't matter which one of these discs that you choose in the wind. It really just matters how you play and what your choices you're making in the wind. If you wanna learn more about that, you can check this video out over here. But otherwise, see you in the next one.